Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
What is wrong with you?
Renee, I just want us to move on from this. That's all. I want us to be a normal family again.
There is nothing normal about this, okay? These things are still here.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show on a Sunday. That's because it's my fault this week, down to the big, huge, massive, nerdy expo that is E3. So we moved the show to a Sunday night. I'm Stuart and Andrew didn't nearly make it.
Yeah, thankfully the trains managed to get me here just in time, but they're not running. Well, they are running, but not all of them. So I was late getting here, but I'm here.
Yeah, they're not running, but the amount of train fare that they make us cough up is insane, considering how unreliable they are. Because I definitely, I don't get the trains because I only live around about 10 minutes away from work anyway, so I don't bother. It doesn't bother me. But the amount of stories that I hear on morning news and all that stuff regarding late trains and trains not arriving, and trains being called off just because there's a leaf on the line or something silly like that.
This one apparently was because of an engineering train that derailed and then found that there was loads of problems with the rail after they managed to get it back on. So it's been a problem where they've basically... It's like a train crash. Don't worry, we fixed it. Oh, hang on a minute. The line's actually really bad. We're going to be fixing this all day.
I love the fact that you just said that nonchalantly there. By the way, there's been a train crash. It's not that bad. It's fine.
It's only an engineering one.
Mangled on the rail line and all that kind of stuff. It's fine.
It's a shame as well. There's always kind of thing that would happen when there would be a movie with a train in it and it would crash.
Yeah.
So it's not this
week. Like Skyfall and the big mistake on Skyfall, but that's a different topic. On this week's show in the cinema section, we're only looking at one film because every single other film was too scared to go up against
Jurassic World.
Yeah, and you'll hear why in one of my pieces of news, why a lot of films were just too scared to go up against it. So, yeah, and on Blu-ray and DVD, we're looking at these films. It's a good job we've got a big, give an eclectic mix.
Yeah, we've got Wild Tales. We have the latest and hopefully, fingers crossed, the last in the Taken series, Taken 3. We have Thriller with The Loft. We have Drama with Selma. We have... I don't actually know, is this horror? Mercy?
Yes, horror.
It is. And we also have a weird science fiction-y movie produced by Michael Bay with Project Almanac. And then we also have another horror film in Tom Holland's Twisted Tales.
Yeah, we actually.
It's one of those.
Yeah, we have in the DVD section this week two sort of portmanteau movies and movies that are made up of mini movies in one. So Twisted Tales is 5 different films, and Tom Holland's Wild Tales is 5 different films, and Twisted Tales is 9 different films.
Yeah, I'm just looking at we've got Taken, which is to the Loft that doesn't really count, but yeah, so that's not really that many actually. I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, and we have the top 10s in each one.
Yeah, so technically I've got around about 20 films to review this week. If you want to look at the technicalities, it's a good job I'm not reviewing a cinema release. And as Andrew said there, we have the top 10s with the Blu-ray and DVD top 10, the UK box office top 10. But let's kick things off as we normally do with some movie news. I'll go first. Rarity for the show. It's just down to the fact that one big piece of news hit a few days ago, in the fact that legendary actor Christopher Lee has died at the age of 93. It's been revealed it was down to respiratory failure while he was in hospital.
Yeah, I mean it's a shame. It's kind of one of those things that you knew was coming because he's 93. I mean, come on, but a legend of film, of screen is, if you don't know him as either Dracula or as Saruman in Lord of the Rings, or even in Star Wars as I forget his name now, Darth Sidious, was it? Darth Dooku, that's it. Yeah, Count Dooku, that's it. Or you don't know him from anything else like The Man with the Golden Gun, Scaramanga, then you honestly have never seen film. He's appeared in so many things. I think it was, I haven't looked at it, but I heard someone say something about his IMDb list is over 300 titles. 300 titles, and that's not appearances in TV and stuff, which he might have some, but that's not sort of, episodes of TV. That is film.
Yeah, on top of all of that stuff, he's also done a metal album. He did a Christmas metal album a couple of years ago, so he was heavily influenced by music. He was just, even though he cut his teeth, and that's not a pun there, in the world of horror, playing Dracula, even if you're not a horror fan, you still know who Christopher Lee is, because you'll have crossed his path in some way, shape or form, because he's got a breadth of different films that he's been in. He's done everything from horror to thrillers to action to little voiceovers in animated movies to comedies to music. So he's dipped his toe in absolutely everything. I don't know if he's directed a film. He might have directed a movie. So
I think there was talk that he had. I don't know for sure, but I think
no, he actually
there
hasn't.
was...
He's never directed
okay.
a film. He's produced two, but not directed anything. So, but it's still, though, this is a person who was nearly 300 acting credits to his name. He's obviously not going to have enough time to direct anything on top of that. So he's a legend when it comes to the world of film, not just one specific genre. And he will be sorely missed because he has that unique voice and his unique mannerisms. If you look at Sauron and in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, he was imposing in that films, and he shot The Hobbit as well, and so he was in his early 90s when he did that.
The thing as well, I remember looking, because if you get the extended versions of the Lord of the Rings films, you have the 4 disc sets basically, where you got the film spread across 2 discs, and then there's 2 discs of just extra material. And I will remember this I remember this as soon as I heard about him and all, but this thing of them showing behind the scenes when something happened and he's sitting there on the set when he was filming, and he's just sitting in the chair and he's just talking, and you just saw everyone around him just stop what they were doing and listen to him talking because of him, this guy of experience and age, talking about, things of working in the industry and stuff, in film industry, and the people that are working in the industry around him literally just stopped what they're doing and stood there and listened to him. And he just commanded, from the looks of it, everything. He commanded that sort of interest and respect from anyone around him.
So yeah, I would be transfixed even if he recited the alphabet in the way he would do it. He's got such a unique voice on that front, so he will be sorely missed. Other news: Entertainment Weekly has confirmed that a Kindergarten Cop remake is in the works. Universal's 1400 division will handle the project.
Yep. I think we actually need to have a list on the wall of just all these films that have been remakes of stuff that are, unwanted. We've got this. We've got the Point Break remake come up, which, although I love the original one, and I can't imagine the original one being bettered by anything, but the new one, I actually do like the look of it. It looks like it's maybe been modernised a bit, but still unnecessary. Do another film and just have it be similar and give it a different story and, change it up a bit. Don't just do the same thing again.
Yeah, but they'll probably will, because it's the easiest way out, isn't it, for them to actually copy the same thing?
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if they just turn things around a little bit and do sort of like a Ghostbusters and just get Melissa McCarthy to play the teacher, to play Schwarzenegger's role and be female instead of male. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I don't know. No, because that was the whole thing of it, was the joint of it. So that they have to have someone who's probably not able to command kids, command the thing. So I mean, someone maybe have Peter Dinklage do it or something.
Okay, that's an interesting way to go around it.
Well, I mean, it would be what kids are going to be intimidated by a short person.
Yeah, true, but then that's not how they'll think. They'll obviously go with somebody who's got an imposing body, so Vin Diesel or Dwayne Johnson or somebody like that. They'll just go down the safe route.
We have seen this already with Vin Diesel with the pacifier.
Yeah.
And we've seen it with The Rock with Tooth Fairy, in a sense.
Yeah,
which I have to admit, actually, I kind of enjoyed.
Yeah, and you thought that me liking Sister Act was bad. Matthew Vaughn has confirmed that he is writing the script, the sequel to Kingsman, and plans to get it made as long as the script is good enough. He was the one who actually said, as long as the script is good enough, yet he is writing it himself.
Well, he's got to be happy with it. But the thing is, I like about that is the fact of it sounds like he's thinking, I don't want another Kick-Ass 2 to happen. Because Kick-Ass 2, basically, he didn't do the sequel, he left it and someone else did it, and as much as they started off with a great film, they ended with a really terrible one. Because it went really downhill very quickly and didn't work at all.
Yeah, because they just went with more violence and that's it. As a matter of fact, they should have went with more Jim Carrey. Because he was the best thing about the film. He
was. And the thing is, when his character left it, that's when you kind of went, "Ooh, okay, this is getting a bit real now."
Yep. More news. It's been confirmed that Chris Hemsworth has joined the cast of Paul Feig's Ghostbusters 3. The actor will be playing the receptionist.
Yeah, this one even had me going WTF. It really did. I was just, what?
I went MWTF, major what the fudge, because it definitely just makes you go Minions what kind of thing. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, please stop. Yeah, honestly, people wondering why Ghostbusters fans are hating on the third Ghostbusters. This
because
is why
it's going to be a train wreck.
It's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah,
Terminator Genesis is going to be rated 12 here in the UK. Like we care.
I don't think there's a problem with that. I mean, there's an amazing amount of what you can get away with in a 12A nowadays. We're reviewing Jurassic World, which I'm sure we will probably mention regarding the rating at some point when we're going through that. And you do get, it can be fairly lenient, especially with films that are, I mean, Terminator 3, if you look at it, was a film that had quite a lot of language in it. It had several uses of the F-bomb and also had quite a lot of violence. But the thing is that it was allowed to be a 12. And that's the weird thing. It was allowed to be a 12A here. In America, it was an R, which is the equivalent of a 15. It didn't get the PG-13 over there, which is the equivalent of a 12. And it was a fact of they let it go because the BBFC classified it as, I think they classify it as comic book violence or science fiction violence, so it's not considered, because, it's okay to see two robots beating 7 shades of crap out of each other, but as long as, yes, 7 shades of metal, that's a good one. But as long as it's not people, so I guess will probably be explanation of it. I mean, we can try and have a look on the BBFC's website, but I suspect because
not yet,
the film's not out yet, they won't.
I checked 22nd of this month when we find out why it's been given the 12-year certificate, because you wait 2 weeks after the certificate has been granted for the film. But
did it say at all? Because if it's been edited, it will be in red. And it will say it's been uncut. It's been passed as uncut.
It's being passed as no cuts made to it. But it will actually detail why it's been given a 12-year in a couple of weeks' time. The same with Jurassic World. I think that's next week when we'll find out why it was given a 12-year. But if you go onto the Following the Nerd Facebook page, there's a little conversation regarding Terminator Genesis on there. And me speaking up for Mark with his views on the fact that you can get, like Andrew said, you can get away with a lot with a 12-year these days. If you look at films like The Woman in Black, if that was released 10, 15 years ago before the 12-year certificate came out, that film would have easily been rated 15. I think the start, when we started to see movies getting a bit more technically violent for a 12 certificate, was the film Congo. Now the film Congo has got quite a bit of gore in it for a 12, and that was granted a 12 before the 12-year certificate happened. Then we were given this 12-year certificate, and it gives people who create films a little bit more of a leeway to add extra violence in a movie that they wouldn't have been able to add in the past. And so if you're given a 12-year, you have to be a little bit more creative with what you come up with to get it away from a 15. So hopefully that's what they're doing. That's the hope that we have with every movie that we hear that's been granted a 12-year, that's a remake or a reboot or a sequel to an original film that was like a 15. We hope that they've been a bit more creative with the certificate that they've given.
Yeah, and also it's worth mentioning as well that the BBFC has changed their views on films. Anyway, so there is a thing on their website which kind of explains a bit their manifesto and how things are worked out now. Because there's actually a really good thing on there which explains, you get every now and again you get a copy of one of the forms that have been written out at the time. They scan them in and they have them on record. They had the Total Recall ones, not the Colin Farrell ones, the Arnold Schwarzenegger ones from 1991, I think it was. And when that was rated, it was given 18, obviously, for being really graphic and violent and stuff. But that's Paul Verhoeven, obviously, for you. But it's a thing of it's interesting to read that and see, details of this happened, this is too violent, this is too much for this and stuff. People noting things. You can read all of their handwritten notes on something, and it's really quite interesting. But mentioning that, Terminator, the original one, was an 18 when it was released in cinema, was an 18 when it was released on video originally. It is now a 15. Sometime back it was downgraded to a 15. Terminator 2, which was rated for a 15 in the cinema when it came out, was given an 18 on video and then was edited when it was an 18 on video. And then when it came out on DVD and Blu-ray, they then ultimately passed it uncut, let the edits go back in it, and they kept it as a 15. So they're kind of a little bit more lenient than they would have been 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, however, I think the biggest mistake I've ever seen the BBFC make was a film called The Toolbox Murders, the Toby Hooper film, the remake, not the original one, because the remake was released originally in DVD form as a 15, but then the BBFC realised they made a mistake with the age certificate of it and released it again as an 18 rated certificate, recalled the 15 rated certificate version back, and I've got a copy of the 15 rated certificate version. So there is times when they've made a mistake, but the 12 year is a good certificate for us to have. It gives parents the chance also to see a film if they can. Again, we'll get onto that in Jurassic World, to see if it's suitable for children to see. So it gives them a chance to test a movie out before they let their children see if it's suitable for them. Final piece of news, it is Jurassic World related, but Jurassic World is open to a huge $511.8 million worldwide, making it the highest opening of any film ever. That's higher than Titanic, that's higher than Avatar, that's higher than the Avengers, any movie. It's the first film ever to get past the $500 million worldwide in its opening weekend. In the US... The film opened with an impressive $204 million, making it the second highest debut behind Avengers. The film is now looking likely to easily cross the $1 billion mark, even though it was not predicted to.
I can tell you the one thing that's popping on the minds of all the executives at Universal now. Sequel.
Well, it's already been confirmed that Chris Pratt is returning. He made a joke. He says, "I've signed on for 38 more films." So he's made a joke with that. But we definitely knew we were going to get a sequel. But nobody predicted that Jurassic World was going to do this. As a matter of fact, Universal's predictions was around about $120 million opening box office for it. Yet it's gone and brought in its budget and budget for advertising and promotional stuff in its first weekend. So anything it makes from now on is profit. The figures haven't been released for the UK yet. I'm guessing we're looking at 10 million plus. In China, it's taken over $100 million just in China alone. So the film has just done insanely big numbers.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I have to admit, I've already seen it twice. I saw it the very first opening Thursday morning, but then it turned out I was also seeing it on Saturday night with my other half, and we saw it in a screen that was actually sold out. So, I mean, you get that a lot on a Saturday evening, but obviously opening film weekend, but it's sold out in a screen, and that's in a cinema that had it on about 23 times that day. It's sold out one showing.
And from what I can gather, on the Friday in the US, the film took $83 million in one day in the US alone. In its opening day at the box office, it was at $22 million. $83 million the day after. So it already took half of its takings in 2 days in America. So it's done stupidly insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's my news.
Right, the only piece of news that I've got is that there is going to be a Pitch Perfect 3. It's moving ahead at Universal, and it looks like they are trying to get writer Kay Cannon, who wrote the first two movies, back on to write the third. The Hollywood Reporter magazine has reported that negotiations have begun between the studio and Kay Cannon, but it's not known yet if there's going to be any attempt to bring back any of the cast, including Anna Kendrick, or if there's going to be an attempt to bring back anyone like Elizabeth Banks, who not only directed the second film, but co-starred in both films and also was a producer on them.
Whoopee. Yay, more Pitch Perfect films. Like, we need them.
Well, I mean, as you said, the first one is really good. I haven't seen the second one yet, but you have, and it seems to be the sort of the common consensus that it is disappointing as both a sequel and a film.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. And one other quick piece of news just announced in the last half an hour. There is going to be another Smurfs film. It's called Get Smurfy, and Rainn Wilson and Demi Lovato has joined the voicing cast.
Did see a new trailer for Pixels before Jurassic World the other day, which had a good Smurf joke in it?
Yeah, I think we'll just go to the box office top 10. I'll read it out, you can comment on it. So at number 10 is Man Up.
Which I really, really enjoyed. It is a good drama, a comedy drama romance sort of thing, but it's not these typical rom-coms. It just has characters that happen to be meeting and going on a date, but they're not supposed to be going on a date, which is the weird thing. And it's the thing of that. I like Simon Pegg, but I really, really like Lake Bell, who's in this, and she's the main character. And it seems to be that she's basically just, for me, anything she's in, indie films especially, she's just cinema gold.
At number 9 is a new entry for Bollywood film Dil Da Dakni Do.
I don't know anything about this one because we don't really get Bollywood films. We don't do them, and so that's it, really. If you know everything about it, then is it?
Yeah, it's a musical with dance numbers, and it's probably on for about 7 years.
Is that actually you know about that, or are you just assuming that because it's a Bollywood film?
Well, every Bollywood film is a musical. Every Bollywood film has dance numbers in it, and every Bollywood film clocks in at least 2.5 hours. So we can at least gather those three. If anybody else knows about Dil Da Dakni Do, then let us know. Because we don't even get them to review on DVD because we haven't a clue when they're even released on DVD. Then we can find lists easily for DVD movies where it's easily more accessible for us to being able to get DVDs because we can get screeners and things like that. However, when it comes to Bollywood films, it's even harder for us to find when they're released on DVD compared to cinema releases and where we can go to see them in cinemas.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just a nightmare to try and get to see. And we wonder, how do they manage to do so well? Because it's just impossible to find them. At number 8 is a new entry, and this film will probably stay around for quite a while, for the secret cinema The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, this is the one that's a real surprise. It's the secret cinema thing where it took, is it 830 million? 830,000 or something like that?
304.
304. Well, I think 800 and something. Okay. Yeah, 304. I mean, it's a thing of that. It got. We don't know the full details of what it is, but obviously it's Star Wars. It's going to be a big draw, but even more so now that we're leading up to The Force Awakens in 5 months' time.
December 18th. But do you know anything about the secret cinema stuff? How they actually work out?
I haven't seen anything about the Empire Strikes Back one, but I know about how they did a whole thing for the Back to the Future one, where they did a kind of big mock-up of Hill Valley and the clock tower and stuff like that.
The way secret cinema works is tickets, especially for this one, cost around about £75-80 per person. And it's not just you watching the film. Beforehand, there's around about 4 hours of experiences, so they try their best to keep the details sparse, and in this case, it is stuff where you've got stormtroopers and you get given tasks and things like that, and that's normally the case with other secret cinema ones. Then you get to see the film, with obviously people cheering and all that kind of stuff, and so any kind of code of conduct is out the window when it comes to secret cinema ones. But the thing you have to realise is, tickets cost around about £80.
Yeah.
Ouch. It is an experience. It's only ever held at one site, and that one site is never revealed. You'll have to find a way of being able to, once you buy your ticket, that's when you get told where it is. Normally, it's down south. So you need to add travel costs on that if you live where we do, hotel costs. In the end, it's probably going to be cheaper to actually fly to America and go to E3 than it would be to go to the secret cinema. So they need to try and have it in other areas, very more closer to
Yeah,
us.
it'd be nice if they had one up here in Scotland, where I am. But I don't know if that.
It would be nice to have anything like this anywhere near me, because we don't even get that kind of stuff. So
yeah, you're kind of in the middle though, where nothing matters though.
yeah, well, I'm in no man's land. That's what you're trying to see. I'm about 40 miles from Hadrian's Wall. At least you're.
Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
Yeah, but in the hypothetical terms, you're in Doomsday, you're in Disease Land. Well, I'm just on the cusp of the wall, so I'm slightly safer than you.
Oh, them's fighting words.
Yep, and number 7 is Tomorrowland: The World Beyond.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's dropping like a stone because I really, really liked it. You can understand though. I mean, it's not been a big draw for people. It is I think the trailers have been very misleading on it, very confusing. I think it's been a case of that it's been badly misadvertised, and apparently the rumours are that it's going to end up costing Disney about 140 million, which is partly why people think they cancelled Tron 3 because of the fact that's probably what would have been the budget for that film. So it's a kind of a double blow to the heart and things of people who like sci-fi films. It's sci-fi that's actually pretty good, not brilliant because it's not written brilliantly. Damon Lindelof, but I liked it. I had fun with it. It's disappointing that A, it's not better, given the talent involved, like Brad Bird, and B, that it hasn't done better, because it sort of means in the future we're just going to get more, sequels and remakes and horrible things.
Yeah, it is Brad Bird's worst film. I have to say that, because his previous work I've really enjoyed. This one I thought was okay. It's got major problems with it, and that's some of the big problems is down to the script itself. But a film that's going to lose 140 million is nothing to laugh about, and it does make studios, even though it is under Disney and they are a humongous studio, it makes them sit back and think. So when people complain that these movies aren't doing very well, you have to realise it's not doing very well because you're not going to see it. It only does well if you go to see the film. So it's easier for us to complain about it, but we need people to actually go and see the movie. And when a friend goes to see a film and it tarnishes its record by them saying, oh, it's not very good or it's average, if it's not part of a franchise, then their other friends or relatives or whatever are not going to see it. The word of mouth, it doesn't matter. However, if it's like a Transformers movie and you turn around and say it's rubbish, your friends are still going to go and see it because it's got the Transformers name attached to it. So it just tarnishes their records, and it's like Andrew's just said there, unfortunately we're just going to get many more carbon copied movies out. Number 6 is Avengers: Age of Ultron.
I see. The thing is, I recently was thinking I would like to go and see it again. I haven't been, but I'm kind of curious, given that it's a film which it's still hanging around in the cinemas. It's not hanging around as much as the first Avengers film did. I don't think it ever would, because of the fact it is just more of the same, which is what I was expecting. But I wonder if I would see it again now, if I would still have the same opinion of it, or if I would come out with a lesser opinion of it, because it's now been a little time since I saw it originally. And I suspect that'll be the case. It's a film that seems to have very sort of been underwhelming to people. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I had no problem with it. But I think it's not going to stand up to repeated viewings like the first one does.
At number 5 is Pitch Perfect 2.
I haven't seen this still.
Yeah, it's just a lazy cash-in sequel. That's about as much as I'm going to say, because I've already said my entire thoughts on it. I just want you to see it so I can get a different perspective, a different point of view on the film, rather than just me repeating myself week in, week out.
I do want to see it. It's just a case of that every time it comes to having time to try and go see it, I end up normally going to see something else instead, and it's going to be one of those ones where I'll end up probably being like the last person sitting in the cinema on the last day it's being shown or something.
Probably. At number 4 is Mad Max Fury Road.
Brilliant film. Absolutely loved it. We both loved it. I haven't heard anyone who's had anything negative to say about it actually say it about the film itself, other than the whole thing of it being a bit of a feminist film. If you don't take that into account, I don't think I've actually heard anything negative about it at all. And the action sequences are fantastic. It isn't a film that has much of a story, which is the amazing thing, given that that's the thing that most people complain about with films when they don't have much of a story. This sets out right from the very start and basically says to you, we don't have a story. We just have a wild ride, and you're going to be stuck to your chair for the next 2 hours, and you're going to have to endure it. And then you're going to come out at the end, and you're going to love it, and they do.
Yeah, and also there was a show that I listened to that we both listened to, and somebody wrote into them mentioning regarding Furiosa's disability and the fact that it never talks down to somebody with a disability, and a lot of films would do that. Whereas with this one, it doesn't do that. Again, with the feminist thing, it actually treats women with power. So it looks at two taboos in cinemas where it's just the way Hollywood handles them is pretty deplorable at times, and just goes under the guise of an Australian director, just goes, yeah, we're just going to treat them exactly the same way as we would treat any character in the film. So well done for them to actually do that.
Yeah,
number 3.
True.
Number 3 is a new entry for Insidious Chapter 3.
Which I haven't seen, and I probably won't see. I haven't seen the other two yet either, and probably won't.
Yeah, there's a film which we'll be reviewing on next week's show, It Follows. I don't know if you'll actually end up watching that, because Insidious Chapter 3, I don't think you'll be as scared as much with that as you would be with It Follows. I think It Follows will really creep you out. Whereas with Insidious...
I was just thinking, actually, sorry to interrupt you, I'm just wondering, you know that whole thing, if you got because it's a prequel, is it a film you can watch without having to have watched the films that came before it but are set after it?
Yeah, because the fact that it tells the story, the backstory of Elise, who's the sort of like main crux of this film, and she's a character who's through the other two movies, and it just tells you how she's dropped out with her psychic powers, how the fact that she no longer wants to do it, and unfortunately she gets dragged back into that area because of somebody who wants to speak to her mother, and she gets this spirit latches onto her, and it's up to Elise with the help of Specs and Tucker, who was played by Lee Winnell, and I can't remember who plays Tucker, to help her out as well. And so it's sort of like the origin story of those three characters, so you don't need to have seen the first two. It's not as scary as the ones, it's not as like insane as the other two as well. It's a bit more of a stripped back movie, but it helps on that way because it's more creepy rather than being quiet bang, or rather than you listen to cues from music to find out where the jolt's happening. That does happen in the film, but not as much as you were expected to. And number 2 is San Andreas,
which I was really disappointed with because it brings nothing new to the whole disaster genre. It is just bits and pieces taken from loads of other films, largely things like 2012, but then going back to classic things like Earthquake, for example. And I just found myself all the way through it. There was one shot in it which I really liked. It was a new special effects shot that I thought was really good. And one bit where there was a quick idea that a character had that I was like, okay, that was smart. I didn't see that coming. Aside from that, it's literally you could have a list of things and tick them off as you're going through it for the typical disaster movie, and it would all be there. So it doesn't avoid filling all the boxes, but the problem is that it kind of follows through them by the numbers, which is a problem. So it's very, very atypical.
Yeah, it's definitely the most cliched-ridden blockbuster this season so far. And the new entry at number 1 is Spy,
which I'm not indifferent to. I actually found it fun. I actually found it funny, and I actually found it watchable without wanting to every now and again strangle Melissa McCarthy. It's I think fairly well directed from Paul Feig. It's definitely his best film. It's actually I think Melissa McCarthy's funniest film as well. That she's in a funny character, but also not in such a way that it's an annoying character. Because a lot of her characters in the past have been very, very self-deprecating to a point of that you just wanted to really scream at the woman and say, come on, be serious. And I really am surprised that not only that they put it together in such a way that it works with her character, but also the interaction of all the other characters. You've got in there Jason Statham's character, who doesn't have a lot, but he pops up at the right times, does the right thing, and is genuinely funny. And that you'd never think it with Jason Statham. If you look at him, you know who he is, you know what he does. And then you see him in a film like this and you think, is it going to work? Well, it does. And so it does with everyone else. Jude Law as well. Even Miranda Hart. Is it Miranda Hart? Yeah, Miranda Hart even and is funny as much as, again, I'm not a big fan of hers. She is funny. She can be funny. And she is in this as well. and it has its moments. It has some ideas in it that are clever. It's never dumbing down things, which is a lot of problem with Paul Feig's films to the audience. And it also has characters that you actually like. They're not characters that you get annoyed with and you just can't stand. They're characters that are there for a purpose and they serve it.
To be honest, by the end of the film, I definitely would not have wanted to spend another 2 hours with them. Because by the end of the film, I did get really annoyed with them. It is suffering from the typical thing that Paul Feig likes to do with these movies. It's half an hour too long. The movie just drags on and drags on and drags on, and there was easily scenes that could have been cut out of the film or trimmed back to lose a good 20-30 minutes of the movie. There are funny elements of the film. It is funny at times, and it is Paul Feig's best film. That's not saying much, though, considering how much I don't like the director. But yeah, it's still not a comedy that I can get 6 laughs out of myself, because I have a sort of like 3-4 threshold when it comes to comedies. It just met that 3-4 laughs threshold. So it's not overall bad. It's watchable at times. I just don't see myself watching it again, though. Right.
I would have a problem, I think, seeing it again. But I don't think it will be a film that I can watch again and again and again and again.
I can't see myself watching it again, so never mind again and again and again. The only film we're reviewing this week in the cinema section is Jurassic World, so take it away.
Yeah, it is the movie from Colin Trevorrow, the director of my TV movie of the week last week, which was Safety Not Guaranteed. Here he's not doing anything to do with that kind of thing. He is doing the whole big Jurassic Park thing. If you don't know what it is, Jurassic Park it's the whole thing of them cloning dinosaurs, bringing them back to life to set up a park, and then things go wrong. Not a massive difference of sort of thing here. It's the typical kind of thing as you would expect. But here you are set in the events that following the first 3 Jurassic Park films, the first of which was set on one island, 2 and 3 being set on the backup island. We are now set present day. It's been 20 odd years since the first film. Jurassic World, the big theme park and everything, is open on the same first island that the first film started at. You have this whole theme park of all the dinosaurs are there. You have scenes of people sort of playing with the small herbivore ones, and you have things like the T-Rex is on a display where people come in and see it feed, and kind of a throwback homage to the original film where there's a goat tied up to something and they come and watch it feed it to the T-Rex. You have the main characters in the film are Chris Pratt's character Owen, and you have Bryce Dallas Howard, who plays Claire. People sort of who work at the park. Owen is a guy who works for InGen, the technological company that's created the dinosaurs. He's working with a group of raptors that he's basically being trained, kind of like a marine unit. Bryce Dallas Howard is sort of the manager of all the technical things of the park. She's running the park and everything's going on, while her 2 nephews, played by Nick Robinson and Ty Simpkins, are there sort of on a guest visit, and she sort of sends them around the park. Things seem to be going all fine until there's this issue of a new dinosaur that they've created, because it means they're kind of expecting every now and again to have to do something new to bring in big numbers. So what have they done? Well, they've genetically engineered a new type of dinosaur. And she explains about this to the new sort of owner of InGen, Simon Masrani, played by Irfan Khan. Here's a clip.
Oh, it's white. You never told him it was white.
Think it'll scare the kids?
The kids? This will give the parents nightmares.
Is that good?
It's fantastic.
So here's the thing with Jurassic World. It is big, it is amazing, it's fantastic. It's the whole thing of Jurassic World. It is everything that Jurassic Park films were, especially the first one. I have an issue with it where it's very good. It's better than the last 2, I think. It's not better than the first one still, but I don't know that it ever really had a chance of that, because the first one has got this whole magical thing that it happened. You do have in this. What's interesting is you have fairly composite, well put together characters. You have a sort of the Chris Pratt character is actually fairly interesting, but also not only because of his performance. Chris Pratt is doing a really good performance in this. Bryce Dallas Howard is doing the sort of atypical character she's got in there, but there's a little bit more to her as the film goes on. You have in there as well the two playing the brothers, Ty Simpkin and Nick Robinson, have their sort of, you believe they're brothers. You can believe that, it's fine, it works. But the big thing here is the dinosaurs and the effects of them, which are most of the time really well. There are a few moments where, because it's all CG'd, there are moments where you're kind of going, you could have done that practically. It would have maybe pulled it off better. It would have maybe given me a belief more that it was there. But then there's other times again, like I say, for example, if you've seen the trailer, you'll seen a shot where you've seen pictures of it where Chris Pratt is basically standing off facing down the four raptors. And in that scene, I was totally sold that he was standing in front of these dinosaurs. You can see the look on his face. You can see it. He's absolutely terrified, but he's standing his ground because he needs to. If he shows, that fear anymore, that they'll pick up on it and they'll kill him. And it's a fantastic performance. That is for what makes it even more impressive for me, is the fact of that you buy his character, you buy his performance, you buy into the film more. So I had a real fun, good time with this. I think that it's got a better sort of sense of action and things going on, but then also developing the story than the third one, because the third one was basically just the thing of the crash on the island, we're here, we've got to get off, run, that's it. This kind of has a bit more of that, but it also has a little bit of crash, we're here on the island, we need to survive, but there's also this going on, and it gives them a thing of they're trying to deal with basically a disaster rather than it being them on the run. The one thing I do have a problem with it, though, is it did feel a little bit on the long side to me. I've seen it twice now, and it's a thing that I think it had an issue with, especially in the first sort of 45 minutes of it. The pacing is a little bit off, I think, with it starting and stopping, and some of it could have been a bit trimmed, I think, to help it in that regard. But it's not bad in that respect. It's perfectly fine. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's only 2 hours long, and at the end, as everyone seems to be, you'll come out and you'll have had a fun time at Jurassic World.
Yeah, for me, I thought the film was good. The expectations for the film, unfortunately, it is another one of those movies where a lot of people might be slightly disappointed because the expectations are so high with the film. The amount of publicity that is getting, it's plastered around on billboards and on the side of buses, and the advert has been constantly shown before films that you went to see at the cinema or on television. So the standards that you expect from it is going to be monumental, and at times it sort of gets close to that, but most of the time for me it just felt like a very atypical blockbuster movie. It didn't try to push the boundaries in any way, shape or form, even though the creations of some of the dinosaurs is very well handled. It tries to add humour in it at times. It feels, for example, Jimmy Fallon plays a guy who's sort of like, he's the helper inside this bubble ball thing that you can drive around, and he's supposed to be inept at about how he's trying to teach you what's going on, and it just feels, because if I got that in that kind of ride, I would be on the edge of my seat all the way through it. I'll be carrying like a little child on the floor. I would not want to watch it if he's going to be having mistakes all the time. So that feels in the film, and I didn't like the kids, to be honest. I found they grated on me a bit too much. I was glad when the scenes were getting away from the kids, when it was actually involving Chris Pratt, because every single time when he's on screen, he oozes confidence in the character that he's playing, and so you want to see much more of him. He plays more of like an Indiana Jones character in this one rather than what he played in Guardians of the Galaxy. So his character is not more as flamboyant as he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's more reeled back. Bryce Dallas Howard, I think her character is quite underwritten. I think she was very one-dimensional. Vincent D'Onofrio plays a very stereotypical one-dimensional bad guy in the movie.
Yeah.
Or is he a bad guy? It's a question that it flip-flops between the film, when in fact when you start to see him, you know he's going to be up to no good, and he might have something to do with something else that happens in the film. So it's a very stereotypical one of that. You've got voiceovers in the movie. Brad Bird actually does a voiceover in the film. He does a voiceover of the guy on the monorail. And so that's interesting to see him crop up in the film. And there's a character who's been featured throughout the movie called Mr. DNA. and that's played by Colin Trevorrow. So the director pops up in the film as well, and you've got one character who's been in every single one of the Jurassic Park movies, and it harkens back to the previous Jurassic Park movies. There is little bits and bobs from each one of the Jurassic Park films mentioned in Jurassic World, so it's self-aware of itself. But like I said, the film itself is entertaining enough. You will enjoy the couple of hours in its company, but I didn't feel like it was going to be this big, amazing spectacle. I just felt, it was another blockbuster movie.
I mean, I didn't have as much of a problem with it, I think, as you had. But the one thing I do question, because we were talking about this earlier, is I do think it gets away with a lot for a 12A rated movie. I think there's elements in there which are maybe a bit strong and a bit... I found some bits of it I thought were a bit, and I don't know if it's just me or not. I'm not a parent, but I have friends who are, and I've said to them, maybe you want to go and see this before you take them. I mean, I've got a friend who's got a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. I said maybe the 9 would be fine, but I didn't think really it'd be good to take a 6-year-old in too. And he's seen it, and he said he thinks they'd be all right, but he thinks that the younger one would still be fine with it. I don't know that I would be that sort of sure to take a 6-year-old into it. But because I mean, there's a couple of scenes in it, especially there's a scene to do with Vincent D'Onofrio's character that I thought was a bit strong and, without directly showing anything, quite graphic.
I agree with you, because when I went to see it, it was on a Thursday late afternoon after work, and there was a 4-year-old in the screening of it, and that kid was antsy throughout the movie. Constant. I know a 4-year-old's attention span isn't that good, but if I was in charge of the cinema, I would not have sold the parents tickets. I would have turned around. I would have actually refused, because there needs to be a cut-off point with a 12-year. It's understandable that it is called a 12-year because anybody under the age of 12 can go to see it as long as they're accompanied by an adult. But there needs to be a cut-off point where, for instance, if the child is below 6, the cinema needs to turn around and strongly advise the parent not to take their child to go and see it. And in this case, with Jurassic World, that is the case. It's not suitable for anybody below the age of 6. Even me, as a hardcore horror fan, when I watched horror movies as a kid, I would have sort of understood if my parents didn't take me to see the film. And so that would be something that I would try to do with my children. Would not want to take them to see a film that I would think that is not suitable for them. So there are times where it definitely is not suitable for anybody below the age of 6. You need to see the film first if your child's over the age of 6 before you go to see Jurassic World. Right, that's it for the cinema section of the show. We'll be back in a month with the home release section.
There was a real sense of you were doing something wrong, but that did give it that feeling of excitement.
When the reveal of the film happens, that's when it just becomes absurd.
And the atmosphere and just the sense you get whenever you go into it is undeniable.
It did absolutely zero for me, which could be for the hype.
What we've just discussed there is just scratching the surface on it.
Hi, I'm Eric England, the director of Contracted, and you're listening to From Page to Screen, the horror show.
And we're back with this week's Monday Movie Show DVD and Blu-ray home release section. I need to really cut it down a bit, don't I?
That's why I just call it the home release section of the show.
Yeah. What are we covering in this half of the show?
We have portmanteau thriller, dark thriller in Wild Tales, the third, and like Andrew said, hopefully final entry in the Taken series. We've taken 3, thriller, The Loft, real-life drama in Selma, horror movie from the mind behind everything from Insidious to all the other horror movies that you've seen over the last 5 years. So Jason Blum's production company with Mercy, Project Almanac, and to top it off, a 9-part horror movie with Tom Holland's Twisted Tales.
Is that your way of saying we're going to be here for a while then?
No, because I'm not going to go that mad into it like I did with the ABCs of Death 1 and 2, where I described every single one of the 26 films.
Yeah. Let's not do that again, though. But well, before that, we go into those. As usual, let's go into the DVD and Blu-ray top 10, starting at number 10 with The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies.
Yeah, even though I've got the 3D Blu-ray of it, I've still not watched it for a second time. I've only ever seen this film once, and I think that's about as much as I can take.
Mordecai is a new entry at number 9.
Awful film. Me and Andrew was in complete agreement that this is definitely going to make some spot in our top 10 worst films of the year very easily. It should easily be in the top 5. So it should be proud of itself for being an abhorrent movie.
I think so too, although we have still got half a year to come, and there are remakes being released during that time.
And there are 2 Adam Sandler films. One looks pretty decent, one looks a bit shocking.
Yeah. New entry as well at number 8 for The Interview.
Which is not as controversial as it was made out to be. If you look at Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they've taken the mickey out of practically every single person on the planet that's a celebrity or involved in the public eye, and they have been shouted at, but they haven't got as much as attention as The Interview did get. It's just, it takes the mickey out of itself too much, and it thinks that it's funny when it's not, but it's not as bad as people expected it to be.
Also, a new entry at number 7 is Kajaki.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I hadn't either. I'm just looking up details of it. It is a small British film. It is a film set around the Kajaki Dam of 2006. A group of British soldiers encounter an unexpected, terrifying enemy. So, I mean,
Sounds
I don't
like
know.
Poltergeist. Not Poltergeist, it sounds like Predator.
It probably is something along the lines of that. I don't know if it's meant to be based on a true thing or anything like that, but when we have to try and check that out and see if we can report on that next week if it's still in the top 10. Number 6, dropping down, is Ex Machina.
Yeah, which I really, really liked. Very well directed and written by Alex Garland. This sort of like, it's not set in the future, but you don't get an area where it is actually set, and it just centers around the Turing test, and if you could tell the difference between an AI and a real person. So it throws a lot of questions at you, and it answers most of those questions, but at least it leaves you to try and judge for yourself, and it's very, very well acted.
Number 5, moving back up the chart in a rare occasion, is The Theory of Everything.
I think we should just move on because we said absolutely everything we can about this film.
Yeah, including it has a theory.
Yep, of everything.
Yeah. And number 4 is Shaun the Sheep, the movie.
Very entertaining children's animated film that's silent from Aardman Animation, and so if you love their films, you'll love this.
Yep. And number 3 is Big Hero 6.
Which I liked, but I didn't absolutely love because it has got some problems with the superhero stuff, but it's still brilliantly animated and funny at times, and Baymax is another one of those typical characters where a lot of people would fall in love with him.
I really, really liked it, and I actually have, this is one I bought the 3D release on, because 3D releases are generally don't go down in price, they tend to go up when they come out, and I really wanted to get this on 3D. So I'm pleased with that. At number 2, dropping down from last week, at number 1 is American Sniper.
Yeah, it's a film of 2 halves. One half involving Chris Kyle in Iraq and these 3 tours that he does. The other half of him back in America. The Iraq stuff works better than the stuff where he's back in America because there is some proper tension in that one, whereas the emotional stuff that's used in the parts where Kyle is back in America is not very well handled. Not as handled as well as the Iraqi stuff, so it brings the film down a little bit.
Which means there's a new number 1 at the top of the chart, Kingsman Secret Service.
Yeah, I had much more fun with this the second time I saw it over the first time, because the first time I felt the middle section of the movie was slightly boring. Yet when you watch the film, it flows much better for some reason. For some reason it worked much better in a home environment for me. So I was more entertained with the middle section because I was probably knew what was going on, so that's how it helped the movie, so it didn't feel like it was dragging, and so I was pleasantly entertained with it, so I liked it much more.
I really, really liked it anyway for the first time, but I've seen it again since, and I've enjoyed it more as well. And I think a lot of the humour plays very well to either cinema or DVD. I think it works very well in both. Sort of sometimes the humour will not work on a smaller screen. This, I think, it just works perfectly because it's got this kind of vibe about it.
Yeah, it does, and the controversial joke that a lot of people harked on about is nothing to. It's you just laugh at it because it is just something that's going back to the old Bond movies. It's not controversial at all, and when you see it the second time or the third time, you realize how stupid a lot of people were up in arms over it.
Yeah. So that's the UK DVD Blu-ray chart. Let's go on to our first new release this week.
Yeah, which is Wild Tales. It's directed by Damien Zisron, and it's under the guise of Pedro Almodovar. He's sort of like, it's part of his production company that's handled the film, and so the film itself is a dark comedy. It's a very, very dark comedy. And it's about revenge. Each one of the 6 segments in the film centres around revenge. And so the first one is centres around a person called Pasternak. And this was the controversial scene where in the cinemas when it was released, just after it was released, you had the incident that happened in the Alps. And so the first segment is a plane crashing. So that's where the controversial part of the movie happens. The second film is about a couple of people who work in a diner. All of a sudden somebody comes in who one of the waitresses recognises. She realises it was this guy who badly treated her back a few years earlier, and so she tries to exact revenge. The third story centres around on 2 drivers, where one of them badmouths the other guy, and so revenge definitely is a dish best definitely served cold in this one, with some of the most what kind of scenes in that part of the film. The fourth one is centres around, it's called Little Bomb, and it's about a guy who gets his car towed every single day pretty much, and so he's had too much of it, and so he decides to exact revenge on not only the people who tow his car but also on the government in an explosive way. The fifth one centres around a family whose son kills a woman who's pregnant, and so they try to get the gardener to take responsibility for it. And then the final one is centres around a wedding where the bride is the bride from absolute hell. She discovers that her husband, who she's just married, has cheated on her, and so she decides to go very much over the top with her revenge. And so, like I said, the film itself, there's no clip for it because it's in Spanish. Each one of the stories has a flow to it. It is centred around revenge, and unlike with other portmanteau movies where you have a sort of like a film that interleaves between it, that doesn't happen with this one. It's very much like when you watch Tales from the Crypt, where, for example, after you saw the first movie, the second film starts straight after it, but for something goes straight into it. So, for example, a car drives off at the end of the first film, which leads perfectly well into the second movie. And so that happens throughout the film, and it's exhausting to watch Wild Tales because every single movie is about revenge, and so it is about despicable, deplorable things that people do. And so by the time you get to the sixth film, which has got the most revenge in it, you're just, at the end of it, you are just absolutely exhausted. That's not to say the film is bad, because it isn't. It's really good. It's very well acted, very well shot, very well handled. It's just really exhausting.
Is there any sort of... You're saying that there's a link between them all, but is there like an overriding thing between, or is it just kind of one leads into the next sort of a thing?
Yeah, it is that one leading into the next thing, because if it was an overriding thing, it would be very much like VHS, where in between each one of the segments you had a little mini movie where they pieced together. And so in the VHS one, it's people discovering videotapes. So in this one, it isn't that. It is just all about revenge, but they flow into each other because the next film starts off where the previous film ended.
Okay, so I'll go on to Taken 3, which is the latest film from Oliver Megaton, who did the second movie. Didn't do the first one, but he did Taken 2, which we didn't like much. So Taken 3, which is him back with Liam Neeson again as Brian Mills. In the movie, he is playing himself as sort of the typical kind of thing that happens to him. He is the ex-operative Brian Mills, who has been sort of around for a while doing all that stuff. He's kind of connected a little bit with his daughter, as you saw in the previous films, and his ex-wife Lenore, played by Famke Janssen. He's sort of there with her and meeting up with her and talking with her about she's having issues with her relationship with her husband. Things don't quite work out when all of a sudden he then wakes up. This isn't really spoilerish. It's like this in the trailer. It's early on in the film. It sets up the premise of it all. He wakes up, finds himself lying in a bed next to Lenore, who has been killed. She's dead. Police turn up, having been called, and he ends up having to escape and go on the run, being accused of her murder. While he's on this trying to figure out what's going on, there is also a detective that's been put on his trail trying to find him, played by Forrest Whitaker. And of course, at one point, the two of them have a sort of a tete-a-tete, not in person, but over the phone. Here's a clip.
Butler. By now I'm sure you know who I am. You know what I'm capable of.
I am beginning to. Let me ask you something just so I'm clear. CIA operative, Division 6, Division 7, what?
All you have to know is I'm innocent. If you give me 2 days, I can prove it. I can find out who did it.
You may very well be innocent, Mr. Mills, but that's the court's job to decide. It's not mine. My job is to bring you in and let the law take its course. That's it.
Good luck.
So, of course, it's being a movie that's a sequel to a film which was a sequel itself, which we didn't want. Do we have this one? Yeah, okay. Do we want it? Not really. It's really just more of the same. It's the whole thing of, like, you know, Michael Bay doing more Transformers films. You think maybe he's going to do something different with them this time. And then you watch it and you go, I was such a deluded fool to believe that, because it is just business the same as usual. Yeah, it tries to do something different with the story, but it's just honestly a complete... You're sitting there wondering what's going on. It's so badly put together. It's so badly edited. It's so badly shot. There are scenes in it that have, you know, more of a Parkinson effect than the Bourne films do. And the Bourne films managed to pull it off. You don't have that here. You have, of course, this being the DVD release of the film that was edited down to get a 12A rating so it could get as many people going to see it in the cinema. You have the uncut or the violent version on DVD and Blu-ray, but doesn't make it any better, because it just means all you get is a little bit more violence, a little bit more blood, and it's just it kind of harkens back to the 80s really bad action movies that were made. Only back then it wasn't that they were made bad because they didn't care, and it was 80s. It was the 80s. They were just starting to sort of get into doing action films like that. They started making them, and they were bad like that because they didn't know what they were doing. Now people know what they're doing. Now people should know better. They don't. They just go, "Oh, we'll make any old kind of rubbish, put it out there, stamp it with a 12A rating. Kids will go and see it. We'll make loads of money, and then we'll make another one because kids will go and see that and we'll make loads of money, and we'll just make another one which is just as 4-letter word." As bad as the last one was, and this is just as bad as the last one, only for the fact of that it's the same thing. The only sort of thing that's saving grace is that it actually has more violence in it. That's it. I mean, you're seeing a film because it's got more violence in it and it should be better. No, it's not. It's awful. It's rubbish. Plot's terrible. Liam Neeson should know better. It's definitely a cash cow film for him, but come on, you're doing this. You did Up All Night, which was just as bad. Get yourself together, get a decent acting job for once, not in something like this. This is just awful.
The only reason why movies like this get away with it is because the movies in the 80s were released direct to video, whereas these ones are getting cinema releases, so it makes it even worse. All of these Liam Neeson movies just get thrown out in the cinema, and they do decent enough business, like you said. So ultimately, the studio thinks that there's enough people out there who want to see a sequel, when in fact... Yeah, they need to listen to people who watches these movies and reviews these films and criticize these films, because we are telling you, we are warning you not to see them because they are terrible. They are actually a waste of your money, a waste of your time. And Liam Neeson has just done this now for the last 5-6 years, and he seriously needs to take a break and think about what to do next, because he is going to be in his 80s and he is still going to be doing Taken 16 or something. When he's in his 80s, so
he's kind of flushing his career down the toilet. He really is, and supposedly, I mean, there's probably going to be another one, or there'll be some form of it. I mean, maybe they'll bring it back and they'll have someone else play the role or something, or it'll be taken the spin-off or taken the TV series or something, and just don't.
Yeah, this was an actor who was in an Oscar-winning film in Schindler's List. He's now in a movie where. He probably would have laughed at about at the time if he was told, "Oh, will you do an action movie like this?" And now he's just going, "Yeah, because it's easy, and I'm Liam Neeson, and I want to be like Chuck Norris, and people make silly jokes about me having a fist on my chin or something."
He can still make really, really good films. I mean, he was in the Lego Movie as well. He was Good Cop, Bad Cop.
Because he did a voiceover, he wasn't actually in the film.
But and also, I mean, films like I forget the name of it now. I forget the name. The one where they're being chased by the wolves and everything. I keep forgetting the name of it, and I love the film. The Grey. It's The Grey, which is a fantastic film. That's only a few years ago.
That was his last good film that he starred in, rather than doing a voiceover. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
The Grey was the last good film that Liam Neeson actually did, rather than
Well,
doing
actually,
a voiceover.
I would say I don't mind Non-Stop, but again, that was a typical same kind of doing that role again, sort of thing. Typecasting.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Yeah, next film then is The Loft. This one is... I've been given a week where I've been given rubbish films, to be honest. This was a movie that was shown in cinemas in the US, and it was shown direct to DVD and Blu-ray over here. It's directed by Eric Van Louis. So that gives you a clue. It's actually got a pretty decent cast, and it centres around a group of friends. Carl Urban, who plays Vincent, who's an architect. And then you've got James Marsden's character, who plays Chris, who's a psychiatrist. Wentworth Miller plays Luke, who's an estate agent. And then you've got Marty, who's played by Eric Stonestreet, and Matthias Schoenaerts, who plays Philip, who's the half-brother of Chris. And they come up with an idea, Vincent comes up with an idea where he finds this loft. And so they are going to kit out this loft so they can take women back to there without their wives knowing. Here's a clip.
Gentlemen, welcome to the loft.
Wow, this is impressive, Vince.
Check out the view. Then imagine that this is our own private oasis right in the heart of downtown.
What do you mean?
A place where no one hassles you. A place you can escape to anytime you want.
Wait, so this is your loft?
No, it's ours. If you want it.
What? Ours?
This would be our secret place. What do you think?
So evidently something bad is going to happen when one day they discover a dead body in the bed in the loft, and so they have to discover which one of them has done that, and obviously their friendship fractures and they start blaming each other, and you get the inevitable twists and turns and things like that. The Loft thinks it's an intelligent thriller, however it is nowhere near an intelligent thriller. You've got a really good cast in there, and every single one of the cast is completely wasted. Everybody from, even James Marsden, who's an actor, which he doesn't star in these kind of big films, you still can see that he can act when his character is just completely flat. Wentworth Miller should be ashamed of himself. He's a really good director, and he sort of took himself away from starring in TV programs and films to write and direct, and so this was the movie that he made his comeback in. And it's a bad character. Matthias Schoenaerts, who we loved in Rust and Bone, decides to do a very one-dimensional, stereotypical angry character.
And I also loved in Far From the Madding Crowd as well.
Yeah, and then you've got the female characters who would just treat like meat. So you've got Rona Mitra, who's in the movie, and all the female characters are just treat like sex toys in the film. And so it's badly executed, badly put together. The twist you can see from 2 miles off. It is that obvious how the movie is going to end. It's just bad from start to finish, and you could definitely see why the movie got a direct-to-DVD and Blu-ray release over here, because it bombed at the US box office, and that's because it's a bad film.
I was kind of curious because I was meant to see this week, but just worked out for things, disaster travelling that I had this evening. I wasn't able to see it in time, and I wanted to see it, and I'm kind of... I still want to see it, but I kind of want to see it just to see how bad it is. But I'm wondering, is it a film? Because it's gone straight to video. I don't think it ever got a cinema release in America. Is it? Did it go? Is it a film that was done on a small budget, or do you think it's a film that was done on a big budget and it's just done so? But it's just been a bad film all round, or do you think it's problems with it, with budget wise?
I don't know what the budget is. I'm trying to actually find that out now. People would have heard me frantically type, and it's got a budget of $14 million.
It's not a great deal.
No, and its overall gross in the US was $5.9 million. But yeah, the film itself, it's not down to budget. It's down to how clunky the characters are written, down to how bad the screenplay and script is overall written, down to how badly it's acted, just down to how bad everything is about the film. It's not the budget's fault, it's the film's fault.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So I'll go on to the other release that I'm on this week. Next release I'm on, because I've got two more. Selma, which is based on the true events that happened around Martin Luther King, ultimately leading to a sort of a march on Selma, Alabama. This is being obviously set in the time of I'm not sure, was it 1960s? It was 1960s, wasn't it? Yeah. Where it was Martin Luther King, as you know, was an outspoken person about the whole thing of racial tension and such, and the rights for black people, for African Americans. You have in the role David Oyelowo playing Martin Luther King Jr. It's basically a film which centers around him and has him sort of leading up things to do with this, while sort of at the same time following the general events of the time that happened. We've got a clip we're going to play of him actually sort of leading kind of a rebellion and leading people up to sort of incite them to riot. Here's a clip.
As long as I am unable to exercise my constitutional right to vote, I do not have command of my own life. I cannot determine my own destiny, for it is determined for me by people who would rather see me suffer than succeed. Those that have gone before us say, no more, no more. That means protest, that means march, that means disturb the peace, that means jail, that means risk, and that is hard. We will not wait any longer. Give us the vote.
That's right. No more.
We're not asking, we're demanding. Give us the vote.
So what you have here with Selma is a film which is basically the best it possibly could be, I think, but within the limits of the constraints of what it has. Now, with that, it means that what I mean by that is that one of the things that is well known about the fact is that the actual rights of the Martin Luther King speeches, and I mean the dialogue of them and what's actually said, the rights to own them is not actually free and available to anyone. It is actually owned by Steven Spielberg. Yeah. So the thing is that for them to be used, they would have to get permission, and he would actually give them rights access to be able to use them. That didn't happen. I don't know the details of whether they tried to get them from him or not, but basically because of that, they don't have the rights to use the proper speeches that were made by Martin Luther King. That doesn't make it any less of a film, but it does mean it kind of feels as if it's lacking a sort of little bit of authenticity there, especially in to do with that, and the fact of that these speeches were so instrumental in bringing about change at the time when change basically was not likely to happen. You had as well, there's a great people in there in the cast. I mean, you have Oprah Winfrey is in there in a role. You have Tom Wilkinson in there playing President Johnson, and there's scenes with the two of them. Tom Wilkinson is bringing his A game. But the thing about it is that it's been a film that's done, as much as it does have grandiose gestures and grandiose moments in it, for me it's a film that does feel more like it's made for TV than it does for cinema. Now that's not a bad thing, being on home cinema, home DVD section, but it still has that feeling of like it wants to be cinematic, but it's not. It is TV, and that's the only real problem I have with it, is that it feels oddly out of place watching it on a small screen when it's trying to be on a big screen. And I know that may not make sense, but it's the kind of thing that you're watching it, you're thinking, I have a sense that I should be getting more from this, from the screen and everything, but I'm not getting it. And I don't think it's because of the film, the direction and all. I think it's just because of the fact that it's been made within what kind of the best that they could, which has limited it from being the best that it could. So it's a good film. It's a great performance. David Oyelowo is brilliant in it. He is very, very good in it and deserved the nomination to win. I don't know that I think he should have won, so I kind of agree with the fact that he didn't win, but I definitely think he did deserve the nomination for the acting in it. And it's one of these kind of things, like, for me, like Imitation Game, where it's a film that, in a way, his performance is brilliant, but his performance is shining out of the film, but the film is kind of dragging it down a little bit because the film isn't quite matching his performance level.
The problem I had with the film is that it was released during the award season, and so it is one of those movies that is screaming out for nominations. It's got a big, massive megaphone shouting at the judges of the Oscars or BAFTAs or Golden Globes, saying, nominate me. Because that's what it's aimed at. It's not aimed at people who are interested in the riots of Selma and Martin Luther King Jr. and him trying to get the vote, even though it's trying to be like that. Its overall premise is to try and get nominations. It's trying to get the actors nominated, the directors nominated, etc. And so I think that harms the film more so, because if they did concentrate on the movie to be informative, to be the drama that it had at times is, then it would have been much more involving. I agree with you on David Oyelowo. I think he's fantastic as Martin Luther King Jr. And it's a shame because there is elements of the film where it suits him to a T, but there are other elements which is just shoved in there. Like Oprah Winfrey's character, she's just in there because they know that she would add gravitas to the nomination for the film. And so it would have been nicer if this movie was released sort of like out of the way of the award season, so it would have been able to breathe a bit more, and they would have been able to elaborate more on characters and scenes and their plight.
Yeah,
that's not to say it's a bad film, because it's not. It is still an interesting film enough. But I agree with you. It works better on the small screen rather than the big screen.
Yeah, but still, it's an odd feeling to say that. But I don't know if you understand what I mean. The whole thing about being, it wants to be on the big screen, but then I think when you see it on the big screen as well, you kind of go, yeah, you're not pulling it off quite. It is a film that's kind of between the big screen and the small screen because it can't decide which it should be.
Yeah, exactly. Unlike this next film, which is Mercy, it's directed by Peter Cornwell and it's produced by Jason Blum. He's now got a tendency to throw a lot of the films that he's producing onto DVD. He's just picked up Eli Roth's new film, The Green Inferno, and that's getting released on September the 25th under Blumhouse Productions after studios did not want to touch it with a barge pole. And so in this one, it is a small idea. It centres around a single mum, Rebecca, who's played by Frances O'Connor. She decides to pack up her bags with her two boys and move into practically the middle of nowhere because her mother is starting to become unwell. She's unable to look after herself properly in the big house that she lives in, and so she decides to move there to help her out. However, the more she stays there, the more she realises that it's not just the mother that's down to bad health, that why she can't look after herself. Something else might be present there. A malevolent force might be trying to manipulate her. And so the rest of the film is about them trying to survive while also trying for Rebecca anyway to try and look after her mother. Now, the film, it reeks direct-to-DVD, it reeks of home release, and it reeks of something else because it is really bad. It's not very well handled at all. There is no tension in the movie at all. The house looks like it's been lifted out of the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre after they've finished with it, rather than a house where they've gone and found, oh, this would be perfect for the film, a unique setting. They decide to add a really strange element of the movie too, because they find it really difficult to pay for the rent because Rebecca, she doesn't have a job with her looking after her mother now. So they decide to rent it out and make the house into a mental asylum of sorts. And so the rest of the bedrooms inside the house now house these people who've got mental deficiencies or who are slightly violent or something like that. And you just think to yourself, the director must have came up with multiple ideas. He threw them, see what stuck. None of them stuck, but he still went along with it. And so there is no tension in it, no horror in it. It's just boring. It tries to add that horror in the last 10 minutes because it forgets that it is meant to be a horror movie. And yeah, it's bad. It's just really bad.
Okay, so my last film of the evening is Project Almanac, which is directed by Dean Ezralite. It is a movie that, as you said earlier at the start of the show, is produced by Michael Bay, but thankfully looks like that's just about all he had involved with it. It's written by Jason Pagan and Andrew Deutschman. It's centering around the character of David Raskin, played by Johnny Weston, who is basically it's a cast of mostly unknown actors, but he's basically a guy there who is living his life. It's recorded by mostly sort of self-held sort of footage, so it's kind of one of these kind of found footage styled films. And you have this whole thing of that he is going through his life. His situation is not good. His father has been dead for years. He lives there with his mother and his sister. He's just finishing school, looking at possibly going off to university, but not being able to afford it. Things are not going so good because of the fact his mum is about to sell the house so that she can afford to pay him for him to go to university. And it turns out one day that he finds in the basement there is a device that's been there sort of giving off a weird clunky noise when he turns the lights on and off, and discovers there is this device hidden under there, which the instructions and plans to build something called Project Almanac, which explains itself as being time reassignment. So of course builds this device with his friends, and with video cameras they go see about setting off and go back in time, ultimately not realizing just the can of worms are opening up when one night they go back a couple of hours or a day or so into the past, see into one of their friends, one of their own people's house, go in there at night and decide to sort of mess around with things while basically they are there. So there's two of the same person. Here's a clip.
My neighbor's dog is a beast. Why are we going in your house? Just trust me. Seriously, this is what we're doing. I want to see if this works. Have you guys ever seen the movie Looper?
No.
God, I love that movie.
What are we doing? We have to go on.
We're doing sick, right? Watch this. No. Shh, stop.
Don't be careful. You guys, shh. Oh my god. Oh my god. Get that. Oh my god, this is horrible. Oh my god.
Oh my guys, wake it up, guys, wake up.
What?
What?
Oh my god, what's happening? We gotta get him out of here.
So here's the thing with Project Almanac. It is a film that does kind of rely on a lot of those tropes of the whole found footage thing, with it's all handheld footage, it's all filmed by them. But the thing is, it does it quite well in because of the fact of that you have they're filming things that are happening when they're doing these experiments, so it kind of gets away with what it can within the bounds of reason, and it works to a large extent. You have the performance of the cast, who are all relatively unknown, are perfectly fine. None of them are particularly bad. None of them are absolutely outstanding. Johnny Weston is very good in the lead role, and it has this kind of this thing of, surprisingly for a handheld footage, there's plenty of times as well where there are sort of decent effects of things. There's a weird thing when they turn on the machine, it creates this weird sort of gravity field, and these things around them just start sort of floating up in the air, and it's quite an interestingly way done. So it's all round. It's one of those films where it's a time travel, and we were saying there, paradox during that clip. We were saying movie, about the dangers of time travel and the paradox and all the things that happen and stuff. And it's a film in that regards that will make your head spin and give you a little bit of a headache. But if you like that kind of a science fiction time travel weird thing where it kind of does make sense, it doesn't just do things and you go, well, hang on a minute, this doesn't work out, it doesn't make sense. But it's a kind of film like it's not one of the films you get so far to it and you go, either you lose all interest because it breaks its rules, or you get so into it that you decide to overlook things. You don't have to do that. This one actually kind of tries to stay within the boundaries of the rules that it sets up. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's quite well done because of that, because of the fact it's not one that 5 minutes later you're going, oh, well, that's just broken the rules. What does it matter? This actually is one where the rules matter, the rules apply, and this is the consequence of breaking them.
Yeah, the film itself is good. It's not... it's passable. There are elements of the film which works. The pretty much unknown cast they're not too bad. It's clunky at times because it gets itself tied up in too many knots when it tries to unravel the last part of the film, the last part of the puzzle. So it gets itself tied up a little bit too much. But for what it is, it could have been much more worse than what was expected. When you watch the trailer for the first time, you expect this movie to be a car crash of a film. But it never gets that bad. It's entertaining enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's consistent. It's consistently clever, and like I said, it doesn't decide, oh well, we're backed into a corner, so we'll just do this because we can. It does things because of the fact that it sets them up properly.
Yeah, unlike Tom Holland's Twisted Tales. Now, if you don't know who Tom Holland is, then you're not very much of a horror fan, but he was involved with everything from Child's Play to Fright Night. And so in 2013, Tom Holland came up with an idea of creating a web series. And so the DVD release of Tom Holland's Twisted Tales is every single episode of the web series that he created. So in this case, it's 9 different films. Each one of them, you actually do get them separated properly. And so at the start, you do get intro and you do get the credits and outro of each one of the little parts of the film. So there's 9 times you see the intro, and there's 9 times you see the credits. And yeah, it grates after the first time, never mind the 9th time. And so the films range from everything to do with the guy with the GPS after he's killed his wife. The GPS sort of like has its mind of its own, to a person who creates a bomb, gets his friend to put his hand on the switch, but then discovers something else is going on, to a new drug which turns people into werewolves. And then there's a film which centres around the end of the world and the people who's inside this house. Could they be turning on to each other because secrets come out, to the final film, which is literally split into 2 parts. I don't know how the hell he managed to actually create 2 parts out of it. Out of a girl who decides to create a pentagram on the carpet of a flat because she wants to speak to her sister one more time. And the pizza guy turns up and they blame him for being the devil. Now, what Tom Holland wanted to do is he wanted to make Twisted Tales into a 12-part series, but he didn't have the budget to. And now, when I read that, I just started to burst out laughing because it seems like he put his hand down his couch and found 50 pence for each film, and that's the budget of each one of these movies, the little separate pieces of movies in this, because it is so badly put together. It's even worse acted, because the acting is just... It's the kind of stuff that even people who were starting out as film students, who were told to create their first film, they would laugh at how bad it is. Of people who were getting their first acting role. Even Leonardo DiCaprio from Critters 3, or Jennifer Aniston in the Leprechaun series, in the first Leprechaun. She's widely put that out of her mind, and any time somebody mentions it, she shouts at them. If she would be glad... she would look at this film and just laugh at how badly it's handled. It's horrible. It's atrocious. It's horrendous. It's the only film I've seen this year that is worse than this is a movie that I'll be reviewing in a couple of weeks' time. Because it is that bad. This is definitely going to make my worst films of the year list. Easily. It's easily in my top 5 worst films of the year because it's on for 2.5 hours. And it's 2.5 hours of movies that I would never get back. I could have sat there and watched Hannibal and Penny Dreadful and things that I wanted to watch, rather than watch 9 small films that is just badly executed with every single one of them.
I'm just kind of thinking, so you've reviewed how many films this week?
There was 9 in this. There was 6 in Wild Tales, so that's 15. I did The Loft, so 16. Mercy, 17 films.
And how many of them were thumbs up?
None. Even though I thought Wild Tales, out of all of them, if I had to choose, I would choose Wild Tales out of all of them, but none. Because like I said, with Wild Tales at the end of it, you're so exhausted that you need to lie down.
Okay, before we go on to round up the film, the show for the week, TV movies of the week. So, do you want to go into yours first? I know we've got the same one for the end of the week, but I don't think we've got the same one for some others during the middle of the week, have we?
No, we haven't, so we'll leave that one last. My TV movies of the week, there's actually 2 on 5-star, surprisingly. Wednesday the 17th of June at 9 o'clock, Poltergeist, the original Poltergeist. Now, I don't know why they're showing it this week when they should have shown it a couple of weeks ago, but yeah, definitely watch it. It is really creepy. It is brilliantly directed, brilliantly made. Steven Spielberg and Toby Hooper. And so you definitely watch Poltergeist.
The original, much better than the sequel, which is really not done well in cinemas at all.
The remake, which is
the remake. Sorry, yeah,
because there are 2 other sequels after Poltergeist. On Friday the 19th of June at 9 o'clock on 5-star, you've got Olympus Has Fallen, which is entertaining. It's completely brain dead, but it's entertaining. It's sort of like it was described as Die Hard in the White House, and that's what it is.
Just reminded me actually of a piece of news for the second one, for London Has Fallen, because that's now been pushed back from being end of this year to being beginning of next year.
Which I'm not surprised, considering we had heard very little to do with it. So
yeah,
it's an entertaining. Yeah, the special effects at times is very, very questionable, but you just let that go because Gerard Butler knows what he's doing in these action movies, rather than a Liam Neeson or a Bruce Willis, which they haven't a clue anymore.
Yeah,
and the final one, I'll let you mention it because we've got the exact same one.
Right, okay, well, before I get to that one, I'll go through a couple others I've got. Tomorrow night, because we're not on Monday this time, because we're on Sunday, it means we can look at Monday night for films, and there's a good double bill on Film 4, starting at 9 o'clock. You have Moonrise Kingdom, which is the Wes Anderson film, which Wes Anderson just makes such great films and thrilling entertainment and funny, and this is no different. It's a funny comedy film, and it's got great performances, and I really loved it. I didn't. The weird thing is, I saw it and I didn't love it so much, and then I saw it again and I really got into it. And then straight after that, again, then on Film 4 at 10:50 p.m. On Monday 15th of June is Green Zone, which is the Paul Greengrass directed Matt Damon film, which is, I think, maybe a bit more interesting now to watch it than when it came out, because the whole thing, a bit more perspective on it being set in sort of the whole thing of Iraq and the search for WMDs. So I think it may be a film that might be quite more timely to watch it now than when it was released some years back. I know as well, not necessarily great films, but they are sort of kind of historic films in the way that when they started off, at least. The Beverly Hills Cop trilogy in all its glory, and the last episode and the last one, are being shown on Film 4 over 3 nights, Wednesday the 17th through to Friday the 19th. The first one is on Wednesday at 11 p.m. The second one is on Thursday at 11:15 p.m. and the third one is on Friday at 11:05 p.m. Which means you're all set up after having viewed all those for the week for the movie that we both are really saying, I think this may be the one of the week, which is the premiere of Rush on Channel 4 on the Saturday the 20th at 9 p.m. The Ron Howard directed sort of biopic of the contest between Niki Lauda and James Hunt in is it F1 or was it?
Yeah, F1.
Yeah, it was F1. Yeah. In the F1 races. So, and that's a film that you should watch big and loud if you can. So have your volume up loud, speakers set up and everything, and enjoy, because it's a great film.
Agreed.
So that's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. Movie of the week.
Jurassic World.
Yep, agreed. Jurassic World. And that brings us to the end of the show. Before we go, just going to give, as usual, our shout out to some people. We've got our friends at Following the Nerds we've mentioned. Feel free to go on their website as well, and on Facebook, where you can have a look at the ongoing argument regarding the rating of Terminator Genesis being given a 12A rating. Then also there is From Page to Screen. I had to look at that, think of it a sec. Which is the number 2 from pagetoscreen.com, and also then followingthenerd.com as well. Both their sites are well and truly worth a look at. Following the Nerd covers all sort of everything newsworthy in sort of entertainment. From Page to Screen covers a lot of the sort of indie releases in the UK, especially small sort of independent films getting made and such. So if you're interested in finding out the small British films that are getting made, which you may not have heard of, but are definitely worth investigating, then head over there and find out what Stuart is thinking there. You'll be back this week. you, Stuart, not
Yep.
Stuart from Page to Screen, will be back on Following the Nerd, hopefully this Thursday, I believe.
Yes.
They have their show on, as usual, around about 9 o'clock. You can find the details on their website. You can check us out. As usual, here we come with the big spiel of it all. MondayMovieShow.co.uk, Facebook.com/Monday Movie Show, at Monday Movie Show on Twitter. And you can also reach Stuart and me individually, Stuart at Cryptic Tadpole. I'm at AHDVD on Twitter as well. You can find us on iTunes, Podkicker, and all pretty much any other Android device because they're all connected. And when it goes up to one, it goes up to all of them. So you've no reason not to find us, go back and have a listen to some of the other shows because we've been doing it quite a while now. We've got quite a bit of a collection there.
4 years in August.
Yeah, going to be quite. I think we have to come up with something special in August for it, I think. Suggestions to us any way you can, if you like, and also email us.
As long as one of the suggestions is not live video, because if you suggest that, then no, that's not going to happen. No. We are not showing our faces.
I could probably handle it, but I don't think your connection could handle it at the moment.
No, my connection would probably handle it because I am upgrading my connection and it should be done by then, but I am not having my ugly face plastered on the internet. My voice is bad enough. My face is just a nightmare.
I'm not going to make a comment on that, even though the door was open.
Here's an example. Just think of what Beetlejuice's face would have looked like when he did that screaming kind of facey scene in Beetlejuice. Mine's worse than that.
And you're ginger.
And I'm ginger, bastard.
Excuse the language, like.
I just said bar. I hate you for that.
Right, yeah. So we'll be back next week. I think on our normal sort of Monday nights timing, roughly.
As I normally do. I'm back on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Details is now up on the website because I'm actually breaking the mold. We've done this show for 4 years and it's all been movie shows. We've done a couple of specials where I've done a couple of spoiler casts. I would like to do another one of those sometime soon as well. And we've done specials.
Well, maybe we'll have that for Star Wars at Christmas or something.
Yeah, we've done specials on specific topics of films. However, on Wednesday, the 17th, from 8 o'clock, live on our Spreaker channel, I'm doing a gaming special because E3 is happening. It kicks off in the US in about 5-6 hours. Over here with the Bethesda's press conference at 2:30 in the morning. But on Wednesday, the Holocaust will be invading the Monday Movie Show, and me, along with members of the Holocaust, will be talking about video games for a couple of hours. I will warn you at this moment in time, there will probably be swearing, so it'll sort of think of it as like the Games Master Go special. When they did the Games Master Go special, they put that on late at night and there was loads of swearing and gore. We will be on at 8 o'clock, but there'll probably be lots of swearing and probably be tons of gore as well when I disagree with them.
Okay, so we're going to go now. We're going to leave you with a clip, as always, to round out the show of the upcoming Minions movie spin-off from the Despicable Me film, where you have the Minions, Stuart.
Hello.
Yeah, Kevin and Bob head off to try and find a new supervillain set before the time they find Gru, and they, among others, are interested in basically getting hired by Scarlet Overkill, voiced by Sandra Bullock. We'll see you next week. This is Minions released on the 26th of June. Till next week, we'll see you then, or till Wednesday when Stuart will see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Can we get personal for just a second? Why are you going to Orlando?
Topolino l'Arrabbiata?
Come on, you can tell us. You're going to VillainCon, aren't you?
Si, VillainCon. VillainCon!
Wow, so many bad guys in the car. What fun!
I knew you were villains, didn't I, honey? What a small world. Hope we're not in rival gangs. Biggie, joke. Hey, babies, huh?